All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Kabbalah Cafe. It is great to see you all on this fine, glorious Sunday morning. How beautiful is it today? Huh? What a gorgeous day. All right, it's great to have everyone here from near and far join us. We have what is set up to be an absolutely incredible conversation and study session on the essence of guilt and shame. And we're going to explore this from a mystical perspective, from the perspective of Kabbalah and Hasidus. And I think what we learned today will be mind expanding, consciousness expanding, but perhaps more importantly, life changing. And I don't use those words flippantly. I literally believe that what we're going to study today has the power to change just the way you see yourself, the way you see the past, the way you feel about yourself, and your connection with God. And it's very powerful. What we're going to do today is primarily focus on studying two sections from the book of Tanya. I'll speak about the book of Tanya in a moment, just kind of give a bit of a background. Caroline, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome to Kabbalah Cafe. So here's the deal. The book of Tanya is what's known as the Torah Shebeksav, the Bible of Hasidic philosophy or Chabad Hasidic philosophy. It was penned in the year. Again, I'm just giving some biographical information on the book of Tanya before we jump into studying two of the chapters, 26 and 27, guilt and shame. That's the outline for today. So here we go. The book of Tanya was written by the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. Now, you should know Alter Rebbe. What is Alter is a Yiddish word. What does Alter mean? Good morning, Jeff. Alter means old. No. Alter, well, perhaps. So here's the thing. Literally, Alter means old. But in the context of the Alter Rebbe, it means also not just the, who would say, oh, that old rabbi. No, that's not what it means. It means like the venerated, right? Or venerable, or respected, as you said. Right, so we have this idea of veneration, reverence for the Alter Rebbe. He was again the founder of Chabad. His teacher was the Maggid of Mezrich, who was the leader of the Hasidic movement, whose teacher in turn was the Baal Shem Tov, and everyone's heard of the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov was the founder of the Hasidic movement. So you have again just generationally the Baal Shem Tov, who lived around the 1600s. Then you have the Maggid of Mezrich, 1600 into the 1700s, and the Maggid of Mezrich, who was known as Rabbi Dober of Mezrich. That was the city that he operated in. And then he had many students. The Maggid Mezrich had many students. The youngest of which was the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. You should know this. This is an interesting factoid that you may or may not know. The Alter Rebbe did not grow up in a Hasidic family or community. He grew up in Lithuania. Anybody with Lithuanian roots? Any Lithuanians? Okay,
Litvak.
Yeah, Litvak, right. They called him the Litvak. Unbelievable. They called him literally the Litvak, which means the Lithuanian. Famously, so he was an incredible prodigy as a young man, even as a boy into a young man. He knew, the amount of Torah knowledge that he knew, he was incredibly bright. And then he had a choice of which yeshiva to continue his education in. And there were multiple yeshivas. There were the yeshivas in Lithuania, where he had grown up. And then there was the yeshiva in Mezrich with the Maggid. And he said like this, and later on reflecting on this choice about which yeshiva to go to. And he ultimately, spoiler alert, he ended up with the Maggid and became a Hasidic superstar. Wait, that sounds like a musician. Anyway, became like a Hasidic, powerhouse. So he later on reflected on this decision. He said like this, that in Lithuania, they taught you how to learn. In Mezrich, they taught you how to pray, how to daven. Learning, I already knew how to do. Praying, I was curious about. I was looking to learn how to. By the way, he didn't mean, you should know, he did not at all mean that he was looking to figure out how to read the words on the, in the prayer book. That he knew how to do. But what does it mean to pray? What does it mean to open your heart, to be vulnerable, to stand before Hashem and to really ask, to really have that kind of dialogue when all you hear is your own voice? Davening, prayer is I always say this, is the hardest Jewish thing. It's the hardest Jewish thing. A lot of Jewish mitzvahs. I mean, we're coming up to Pesach, right? You gotta eat matzah. Okay. Is it hard to eat matzah? I mean, I guess. Sort of. Depends on which matzah you get. I always joke, right? Some of the matzah, you're not sure if that's the box or it's like, oh, comes with an edible box. Oh, look at that. I mean, if they just print it with the bumps, would we even know the difference? I'm kidding. Not making fun of matzah. We love matzah. Matzah is a powerful mitzvah. The point is that eating matzah, yeah, it's crunchy, right? I wouldn't call it a difficult mitzvah. Prayer, okay, that already requires to really open up and be vulnerable. But today is not about prayer. It's more about kind of setting the stage for who the Alter Rebbe was. Again, we call him the Alter Rebbe, yes.
Two questions, maybe one of them not the Baal Shem Tov had kids, or was he?
Baal Shem Tov had a daughter. Baal Shem Tov had a daughter. Did he have a son? I don't recall. There are many stories with him and his daughter traveling different places. I don't know about a son.
But the kid was related to him, or was it just his student?
Just a student, no relation. Yeah.
And then Sefer Tanya, when the Alter Rebbe wrote it, it's a guide, but is it accepted on all Hasidus, or is it more?
Yeah. The Tanya is very well accepted by all. It's what were those commercials for American Express? Right.
The only phone without it.
Was that the only one without it? Yeah. Or maybe Visa accepted everywhere you want to be. There was like one of these taglines. Yes, Tanya is well accepted. So let's hone in on Tanya, because now I gave you some of the bio. Hey Norm, good to see you. So so that now that we got the bio out of the way.
Baal Shem Tov.
Yes.
What was his?
Who was his thing?
No, what was his inspiration?
Oh,
what was the start?
What was his? Good. So very, very briefly on the Baal Shem Tov, because I really want to focus back on Tanya. We'll do a little study. So about the Baal Shem Tov. So he was obviously he didn't grow up Hasidic. There was no Hasidism, but he did grow up at a time when there were these bands of secret mystics that would literally roam around different places. There were other Baal Shems, right? Baal Shems before the Baal Shem Tov. He was one of them. So he joined up a band of merry mystics, which would be a great name for a band. The band of merry mystics, the Merry Mystics band. Anyway, so he joined up with a group. He was a secret tzaddik, secret mystic. At the age of 36, he got a calling. It's complicated. Anyway, he to open up to reveal his to kind of teach the world and not just hold it. He was a school teacher.
Okay.
He was a fairly what would be the right word? Low-key school teacher. He would travel around different places. If they needed a teacher, he would teach. He would inspire people. He would inspire simple folk to pray.
That
to
was
daven.
the key, the simple folk.
Yeah, for 100%. He was all about also location. Yeah. Oh, location. I thought you were going real estate on me. Location. One second. Hold on. Stay with me, guys. There's a chat that's coming in.
Somewhere in Lithuania.
Okay. So yeah, no. The Baal Shem Tov was operating in and out of I can tell you the places. He was in Liadi. No, that's the Alter Rebbe. No, the Baal Shem Tov operated out of, it's Russia, essentially. Various places in Russia. My Russian geography is not where it should be. But somewhere in those circles. So he would do a lot of traveling. He would encourage, but you're right. The key is the simple folk. And really what Hasidism sought to do is tear down what had become a bit of a hierarchy between those that were like Talmudic scholars and then the rest of the populace.
The Tebias of the world.
Yeah, and he was like, look, God loves everybody and everybody is precious. In fact, the person that is the scholar might be arrogant and therefore might have the Talmud that they study with that arrogance might be, if we were ranking things, less desirable to God than the pure Psalms recited by the farmer, the shoemaker, whoever it is, the person that was not learned, but who does it sincerely. That was one of the major thrusts of the Chassidic movement. It's not about how much you know, it's about sincerity. God, Hashem Rachmana Libabai, God wants the heart. It's about the relationship. Obviously, there's study involved and everything else, but it's not exclusive to an academic. It's not just an academic experience. All right. So you had the Baal Shem Tov, you have the Maggid, and then you have the Alter Rebbe. In 1798, I'm giving you a date or a year at least. In 1798, the book of Tanya was printed. Okay, this was can we call it a watershed moment? I don't know why it's called watershed moment in general, where that phrase comes from, but it was a watershed moment in the dissemination of Hasidic philosophy. So he had his own twist on Hasidic philosophy. His twist was that it should be studied not just emotionally, not just about the heart, but also academically. In fact, Chabad stands for Chachma, Bina, and Das, which are the three intellectual faculties. The idea being that although Chassidus is about the relationship and the emotional part of it, but we're going to create a philosophical or an academic, I don't know if the right word is academic, but at least the logical framework for understanding all these concepts and then having the inspiration of the heart being born of what we study in our head. So head, heart, and then action. That's the order, right? We study, we get inspired, the heart gets excited, and then we're doing what we need to be doing. Okay, so that's the philosophy. In 1798, the book of Tanya is published. And this was an incredible moment because what he did was he penned in 53 chapters, really spiritual guidance, life guidance, and more than that, also a deep dive into the psyche of the human being. Remember, this is before psychology or the movement of psychology. This is before Freud, who was a Jew. And by the way, Freud and the fifth Rebbe, we're talking about the first Chabad Rebbe, the fifth Rebbe had a relationship. In other words, they knew each other and they spoke to each other. Just FYI, just giving you a little bit of historical context there. This is the first Rebbe, so this is way before Freud. And as you'll see today, the topics that are explored are so deep and so real and so psychologically and emotionally just right there. It's incredible. Today we're going to focus on, now with the bit of a preamble about the Alter Rebbe and about the Tanya out of the way, we're going to jump into, as I mentioned before, two chapters. Chapter 26, partial 26, and the entire chapter 27 of Tanya. We're going to study these chapters that speak about guilt and shame. And before we get into them, I want to tell you a few things. Number one, the conversation about guilt and shame, especially shame, will be very much related to the text that we are learning, the text, the typical text that we're learning, inside these sheets. But even as a standalone, this learning is extremely, exceptionally valuable. And I think, again, very relevant and riveting. So a few things. So that's one thing. Sorry. The second thing. We need a working definition. What is the difference between guilt and shame? And I think sometimes some of these words are a little bit, maybe in our heads, interchangeable. Guilt, I feel guilty, I feel ashamed. Like what's the difference between guilt and shame? So actually, let's have a conversation with this.
Shame is just something. It might just
okay.
Look, the way you dress, that it's guilt is something that you did in the front.
I like that. I like this. I'm going to repeat it for our online group, and I want to elaborate on that. Honestly, that's exactly where I wanted to get to. So guilt, and you could listen. We're dealing with words and feelings, and so you can probably parse it, one way or another. But I think even if you don't typically associate these words with that, you'll hear what as we explain this, and you'll kind of understand where I'm going with this. So guilt is like this. Guilt is feeling bad about what you've done. Shame is feeling bad about who you are. Those are two different things. So guilt, here's an example of guilt. Guilt is
chop down the cherry tree.
Chop down the cherry. I heard that never happened.
What?
I heard that's right.
It's a Baba Mice.
It's a Baba Mice. The whole thing. George Washington, right?
He was a politician. Of course, he has a lot of Baba Mices in his closet.
The whole point was that he would never tell a lie, and the origin story is a lie. What are the odds? All right, but
And he
notwithstanding,
lived at the time of
when did he live?
1776.
Well, literally in the heyday of the Alter Rebbe.
Right.
That's actually interesting. By the way, just so you know, the Alter Rebbe was born.
Relative.
Interesting. The Alter Rebbe was born in 1745, and he died in 1812. Just so you know, 1740. That's the span. 1745 to 1812. That was his
When
life.
George Washington was floating around.
I guess. And chopping or not chopping on cherries.
Guilt can be also not just something that you've done and you feel bad about, but something that you know you didn't quickly do and you didn't have to.
Yes. Yes, correct. So guilt, and I'm going to repeat that again. So guilt could be correctly said about something you did or something you didn't do, right? Something you did or something you didn't do. But guilt is, if we talk about it, internal, external, guilt is more about the external. Now, yes, it was me who did or didn't do that thing, but it's about something that was done or not done. And that's kind of like pointed a little bit out. It's a little bit outward and not self. So again, the example would be that I chopped down a cherry tree I shouldn't have, or I was supposed to chop down a cherry tree. I don't know why we're using cherry trees, but I didn't chop down the cherry tree. By the way, you should know cherry trees you should not chop down because it's a fruit tree. And the Torah says to be very careful when you chop down. It's a non-fruit bearing tree. Okay, that's what
that was at wartime.
No, even in wartime, when you need supplies, you should still avoid the fruit bearing trees.
Okay.
That's the whole. I had a gardener, an old, back in the day, gardener, whatever, a guy who mowed the lawn. Anyway, I once asked him about it. Huh?
Landscape architect.
Right, exactly. Yes, 100%. So, and I asked him, there was a tree that was growing, like it was growing sideways. It was like, I'm like, this does not look good. Like, I don't know what happened. It's like growing this way. It's like a small little thing. So I'm like, can you just cut it down? He's like, he was a Jewish guy. He's like, it's a fruit bearing tree. I'm not gonna cut it down. I can try to help it. I'm like, okay, fine, great. No, but I didn't know it was a fruit bearing tree. Anyway, long story short is that guilt is something that is done. So I'll give you an example. Let's use a sports example. So imagine, here we go, Super Bowl. Okay, big game. Maybe we should talk about college basketball because that's all the rage. Maybe let's do basketball. I never do a basketball example. Let's do it. Women's basketball now is all the rage. Caitlin Clark, unbelievable. All right, back to the Iowa. Watch out for Iowa. They're going all the way. I called it. All right, here we go. So imagine you are playing basketball. It's the final game. In college basketball, I guess they have one game, national championship game. The score is tied. You have the ball. The clock is ticking down. 5, 4, 3, 2. You take the shot. 1. Buzzer sounds as the ball is in the air. And the ball bounces out. You don't score. And you're allegedly, the best player on the team and the one they wanted the ball in your hands, yada, yada, yada. And you've played this shot in your head. Countless times. How many times have you done the countdown in your driveway as a kid growing up? And how many times did you practice this in elementary school and in high school, in varsity, junior varsity, whatever it's, right? A million times you practice a shot and it doesn't go in. And now you let down your team. Your team was looking to you. You were the hero. You're supposed to be the hero. And now you didn't do it. And you feel well, I know this can go either way, I guess. Guilt. So, but you feel guilty, let's just say that, about not making the basket. Okay. But it's tied, right? It was tied. You could have won the game. Now it goes to overtime. But you're feeling guilty about missing the shot. So probably that feeling of guilt is not going to help you in overtime. Feeling guilty, probably not the best. Is probably not the best emotion to carry into that time. Probably the best idea is to clear it out, which we'll speak about when dealing with guilt in a moment. Shame is different. Shame is not, I feel bad that I missed the shot. Shame is, it's almost a self-definition. I am a loser. Like I am no good. It's not about I missed the shot. It's what does that say about me? And again, I'm using we use cherry tree example, basketball example. These are all, I don't know. I guess if you're a basketball player, that's not a silly example, but whatever. These are all examples. But everyone has examples in their life where you did something or didn't do something, and you feel bad about it. And you feel bad. It could be on two levels. Either you feel bad about doing or not doing that thing, or you feel bad about what that means about you as a person, right? I'm a failure. I am no good. I fell short. It's not I did or didn't do that thing. It's me. Basically, shame. And shame is much deeper, because shame is the realization that the person staring at you in the mirror is not the person that you would like to see staring at you in the mirror, right? It's like, what have I become? Who am I? Who is this person, right? Shame is also the feeling of the gap between where you are and where you think you ought to be or you should be, or the person that you should, right? And that cuts much deeper. That's a self-identification. That is a understanding of who am I that I have these challenges and I feel so bad about who I am, as opposed to guilt, which is I feel bad about what I've done. Okay. Guilt is easier to fix on every level because guilt is just fixing the behavior. Shame is now I have to fix myself. Okay, that's a much larger conversation. The Alter Rebbe deals with guilt and shame in time. Now, the reason why he deals with it in a book of spiritual guidance is very simple. Just going to outline it very, very quickly, and then we're going to jump into the text because this text is gold. He deals with it because he has a premise that is, if a person is feeling negative emotions, they're less likely to be able to accomplish great spiritual things. In other words, being able to fight the daily fight, the good fight, to battle against our negative inclinations and to do what's right and to bring more light into the world, all of that requires energy. You have to have energy. And if there are energy drains, that's not good. We don't want, like if you're driving, you don't want your gas tank to be leaking. That's not, or oil, like you don't want leaks. Leaks are not good, right? It just drains the energy. If you have a battery, whatever it is, you can laptop and it's leaking, and by the time you open it up at Starbucks, there's no battery left. None of that is good. You want full power. You want to, 100%. You want to be going at it 100%. So any emotion that is an energy leak or energy drain, anything that makes you feel bad, the Alter Rebbe says we gotta push that. We gotta deal with that and neutralize it, because even if you feel self-righteous about feeling bad, if you're feeling bad, it's an energy drain and it's not good. Does that make sense? I'll say it again. You might feel a person might feel that by feeling guilty about something that they did wrong, that shows how righteous they are. Look, right? I feel bad about the bad things that I've done. That makes me a good person. Imagine if I didn't, I would be a narcissist or sociopath, right? Imagine if I did bad things and didn't care. Like, I don't care. You deserve it. That would be bad. So if I feel bad, that's good, right? Feeling bad is good. Alter says, thank you very much for your games. But if what you define it as good is feeling bad, and like, oh, I'm going to feel bad about what I've done, great. All you're keeping yourself is in a negative space. And what are the odds? Imagine if you're trying to eat healthier and then, there's some ice cream and in a moment of weakness, you eat some and then you feel bad about eating some of the ice cream. What are you now more likely to do? Eat more ice cream, right? I thought you would say eat more chicken, like that, like the Chick-fil-A. No, so right, you're going to eat more ice cream. Why? Because you're in a negative loop. That's the ways. Again, this is before modern psychology. The Alter Rebbe really gets into the psyche. He says, if you are feeling bad about something, you are more likely to repeat that negative behavior. Paradoxically, the worse you feel about it, the more you're likely to do it again. That's one point. Second point is that's about guilt. Shame, if you feel bad about who you are, then you're toast. Because then if you have a low self-concept, if you have a low self-image, then why wouldn't someone low do lowly things? Now you're really in trouble, right? If you are a lowly person So then it's not out of character to do lowly things. That's not where we want to be. We want to have an elevated self-concept so that we should look at this and say, that's beneath me. I would never do that. Right? It's pastnish. This is not for me. It's not appropriate. We want to have an elevated self-image, not a lowly self-image. All of which to say that even if we could conceptually pat ourselves on the back and say, look at me, I'm such a tzaddik, or I'm such a good person because I feel bad about the bad things, about who I am, even though we might think that is a good thing, that's a negative thing. You guys with me on this? Okay. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe spends a few chapters dealing with the core question of how to manage guilt and shame. And for this, we are going to pass around these handouts. Oh, you already have one. So please take and pass. Thank you, thank you.
Look at him, two-handed Norm.
That's it.
When it comes to drinking.
I'm going to pull this up. Give me a second. Let's get this going over here. Okay, perfect. I've got it up here for our online crew.
While you're pulling that up, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I was reading through Tillishkin's book.
Which one? Rebbe?
Yeah,
Nice.
but what was interesting and compelling to me is I know the history of the Hasidic movement
Yeah.
and how, you had your erudite and, and they fought back and forth. But the one thing that caught my attention was that he writes that when it comes to Hasidim, Lubavitcher have the most simcha, most joy, most happiness of all the Hasidic movements.
Nice.
So my question is, where did the other movements lose that? Do you know what I'm saying?
That's a good question.
Basis of the Baal Shem
I will
Tov.
tell you, it's probably a little bit out of my wheelhouse to like break down exactly the Hasidic
But you
differences.
understand the question?
Oh, I understand the
that I'm
question totally. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's leave that question. Again,
Okay.
I don't know that I could give you a good answer, but also let's leave it because I want to jump into this text right now. So we're talking about guilt, difference between guilt and shame, and how to address guilt. So here we go. You guys ready? Let's jump in.
Ready?
Kabbalah Cafe, Spiritual Surrender. That's the name of the series. Supplementary text. Part 7. It's not part 7. This is like we're 21 classes, 22 classes into this book. This is part 21, 22. But part 7, only because every time I make a special handout of additional text, I just keep on going with that number. So it's part 7 of additional text. Anyway, just for the record. Guilt. Here we go. I'm going to read it and explain. This is Tanya chapter 26. As for sadness, connected with heavenly matters. That means feeling guilt about things, mitzvah opportunities that you haven't capitalized on, or spiritual things that you should not have done that you did. So as for sadness connected with heavenly matters, one must seek ways and means of freeing oneself from it. What he says. Let go of the guilt. But hold on, let's see. That this applies at the time of one's divine service is self-evident. For one must serve God with joy and gladness of heart. In other words, if you're in the middle of a Seder and you feel guilty about the time, that you missed the Seder, let's say. You're like, oh, I feel so bad about the time that I missed the Seder with family, whatever. And whoa, time out. You're in the middle of a mitzvah. You're going to feel guilty about something it's going to make you sad. No, when you're doing a mitzvah or you're studying Torah or you're praying, whatever it is, if you're serving God at that moment, you got to be peak joy, peak happiness. So that goes without saying, he says. But let's continue the next paragraph. But even one who's occupied in business and worldly affairs, in other words, even if it's in the middle of the day, you're not in middle of the workday, middle of whatever you're doing. You're at a Braves game. Braves, by the way, pretty good. All right. But even one who's occupied with business and worldly affairs, should there descend upon him any sadness or anxiety about heavenly matters during his business affairs, look what he says. It is certainly a trick of the evil inclination which saddens him, ostensibly for spiritual reasons, in order to lure him afterward into lust, God forbid, as is well known. In other words, if you're in the middle of work, you start feeling guilty, even spiritual guilt, about something that you did or that you didn't do, you shouldn't have done it, whatever it is, you feel guilty, Guess what he says? That is not it's not a righteous guilt. That's a rotten guilt. That guilt is coming from only one place, your yetzer hara, your evil inclination. He says the trick, don't fall for it. The trick is it's coded in spiritual no, it's coded in a halo. It's coded in, oh, look at me. Even at work, I can feel bad about the wrongs that I've committed. Nice try. All of that is the strategy. It's all the execution and strategy of the evil inclination. It's all to get you and I to feel bad about self, and therefore, Natan, good to see you. Welcome. So it's all a trick. It's all a ruse to get us to feel bad about ourselves, to bad about what we've done. Welcome. And to have us feel, to get us pulled back into negativity. Listen to this. Let's continue. Look at this third paragraph. He asks a rhetorical question. Now you know it's a Jewish text because he makes a statement rhetorically. For if it were not so, if this were not coming, if this were not coming from the evil inclination, from where would a genuine sadness, one that is derived from love or fear of God, come to him in the midst of his business affairs? You're at work right now, right? You're not meditating on God. Why are you feeling guilty now in the middle of work? Where's that coming from? There's only one place. It's the evil inclination. That's it. It's not coming from some sort of godly divine place. You haven't been thinking about God for the last few hours. You're at work. Why are you feeling guilty now? You're feeling guilty only to tear you down, only to get you into this guilt loop and to make you feel vulnerable and then to pull you into negativity. You're feeling guilty. You're feeling bad about yourself, feeling bad about things that you've done. Guess what? Oh, I feel bad. I gave the example of ice cream before. I feel bad that I ate the ice cream. I feel bad that I'm off my diet. You know what? Guess what? The more you feel bad about it, spiraling down. That's just the way human beings work. Let's continue. Whether the depression, this doesn't mean clinical. This means, feeling bad about self, the guilt. Whether the depression settles upon him during his service of God in Torah study or prayer, as we said before, obviously then it's not appropriate because you need to be happy when you're serving God, or when he is not engaged thus, but with his material affairs, like we just said, in the middle of the workday, he says this is the antidote. This is what he should consider. In other words, if you are feeling guilty in the middle of the day, whether it's at a time of spiritual activity or a time of material activity, both cases, it's not appropriate. And this is what you tell yourself. Listen to this. Gold. This is the self-dialogue. Now is not the proper time for genuine sadness, nor even for worry over grave sins, God forbid. That quote is the internal dialogue that you tell yourself. Now is not the time. Very important to replay the video and to figure out what we did, what needs to be fixed. Now is not the time. Let's continue back inside. For this, one must set aside opportune times when the mind is calm to reflect on the greatness of God against whom he has sinned, so that thereby his heart will truly be rent with genuine bitterness. It is explained elsewhere when this time should be. I'll tell you, although that was very enigmatic. We've said elsewhere, when is the best time? He says Tikkun Chatzot, which is the prayer that some people say, special prayer service that some people do at, I would say at midnight, but it's not really midnight. It's Jewish midnight. Chatzot is Jewish time is different than regular time, right? Based on the amount of sunlight. If it's summer or the winter, so either you have more or less daylight hours, you take those hours divided by 12, you either have a short hour or a long hour. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, whatever, either way. So the point is that Jewish midnight, which now is probably, I want to say 1:40 maybe in the morning. So some people have this service, Tikkun Chatzot, they pray and they lament the loss of the temple and they pray about, things that need to be worked on. It says that's a time of introspection. I will say that if, most people don't do this, but a good time to do this would be in the evening, at night before going to sleep, or maybe a while before going to sleep. House is quiet. You have time to think, be contemplative, be retrospective, think about the things they need to fix. That's the time to think about that. Let's continue. And then I'm going to kind of summarize this because it's very powerful. Second to last paragraph on that first page. There it is also explained that immediately after his heart has been broken, during those appointed times, he should completely remove the sorrow from his heart, and he should believe with perfect faith that God has erased his sin and that he pardons abundantly. In other words, after feeling contrition, after feeling, broken over the mistakes, right? Then allow the joy to come and allow the joy of recognizing that God surely is going to forgive, and God God forgives and God gives, cleans the slate, and that should induce joy, not being stuck in guilt in that negative cycle, but to allow yourself to be filled with joy of understanding, belief that God has wiped the slate clean. This is, last line, this is the true joy in God, which follows the sadness as explained above. So we have sadness of the guilt and then the joy. Before we turn the page to talk about shame, and that's a much longer piece, I want to just kind of summarize what we did about guilt. Don't feel guilty if you've looked ahead. I'm kidding. Don't feel no. So what is the guilt? Guilt is like this. Guilt is I feel bad about something I've done or something that I haven't done. In the context of Tanya, he's talking about an affront to God, as it were. Now, this could easily be an affront to another person. This could easily be saying something that was hurtful to someone else, or doing something that was hurtful to someone else, or not doing something that would have been beneficial to someone else. This could easily be an interpersonal thing. And honestly, the same rule would apply. Again, he's speaking in spiritual terms, i.e. of a relationship with God, but the same would be in interpersonal terms. Let's say you feel bad so you have a relationship, you have a close relationship with somebody, but you said something or you did something that hurt them, right? They got hurt. Now you feel bad about that. And now in the middle of the day, you feel bad about what you said, about what you did. And now it's dragging you down. So he says, okay, here we go. That's a red flag. Pull it out, wave it around. Red flag. Why in the middle of the day are you feeling bad about these things? Why? It's only coming from one place. Your yates are your inclination. That's looking for any angle to take you down. And so what's the best angle? When you feel bad about yourself. You feel bad about what you've done. So now you feel bad. Great. You're not vulnerable. You're feeling bad. Oh, you know what else? You know what else you could do? Now that you're feeling bad about what you've done, I've got more suggestions. If you're already doing bad things, here's the rest of the list. All of it is coming from the evil inclination. Notice that in the extra chapter 26 of Tanya that we just read, he doesn't say become cold-blooded and not caring about the bad things that you've done. He never said that. He said, tell yourself one thing. Now is not the time. So when is the time? Later. In other words, I'm going to speak very clearly. Make an appointment with yourself. Tell yourself when it comes to you, when the feelings of guilt come to you, tell yourself, valid and very important, let's schedule a time tonight, tomorrow night with yourself. We're going to schedule a time, sit down, the piece of paper. I'm going to think about the stuff that I did that wasn't, that I shouldn't have done. Think about that stuff, contemplate it, figure out a plan of action, address it, write it down, make a resolution. We'll deal with it. But at the time, place, and psyche of your choosing. When it comes to you, he says, that's only one thing. The evil inclination trying to bring you down into negative emotion spiral. Tell yourself, valid, totally appropriate to deal with, but at the time that I will deal with it. This is so very important. Again, I'm going to use the example, the sports example, whether it's, I usually use the kicker in football, or whether it's the point guard in basketball who missed the shot at the end of the game. Now it's in overtime. If you feel guilty about missing the shot, you are not in the right emotional space for what do they call it? Overtime? For overtime. Yeah. You're not in the right space. Imagine, end of the World Series. You strike out, tie game. You have a chance to hit the home run, bases loaded, whatever it is. You strike out. Imagine how guilty you feel about that. You let down your whole team. You could have won the game. It would have been easy or whatever. You could have done it. You didn't do it. Guess what? If you go into extra innings feeling guilty, you're done. Your head's out of it, your heart's, you are toast. You're going to strike out the next time also. If it's in your head, you're done. You know what the only thing you tell yourself is? I messed up, and I will look back at the video tomorrow. I will deal with that later, not right now. Right now, I need to be in the game. Right now, I'm in the game. Anytime the feeling of guilt comes to you, doesn't matter why. Oh, it's valid, justified. Yeah, sure. No one's saying it's not. Just tell yourself, great, Let's schedule a meeting. And then you deal with it at your time, on your terms. Not that you're not going to deal, you're going to deal with it, but you're going to deal with it in a healthy way. When it's at night, when it's not like you need to be doing amazing things during the day to get things done, whether it's spiritual or materialist. It's at night, you have some time, you have some brain space, you're calm, you're approaching it from a calm place, you're not reactive, you're proactive, you can deal with the issue. When you're reacting, you're done, you're finished. You're reacting, you're not going to get anything done. It's like trying to fix a leaky roof when it's raining. No one's going to come out while it's raining to fix a roof. First of all, it's slippery. Second of all, I've never been on a roof, so I have no idea. But I'm assuming, right, that that's not a good idea.
No, you shouldn't assume that.
People do go up on a roof when it's raining? Really?
At
Interesting.
least with that blue tarp.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why anytime I get into like home
You
construction
see?
examples, probably not the most qualified to do it, but that doesn't take away from my confidence in doing it anyway. So look, you tell yourself, look, it's
It would be better to put the tarp on before rain.
right.
But
Or-
you didn't know it was leaking until it rained.
Right.
There we go.
The only point is sometimes being reactive, not sometimes. When it comes to our emotional stuff, being reactive is not the best strategy. Be proactive. Yes, it's coming on the heels of feeling guilt over something, whatever. But make yourself an appointment with yourself. Deal with it. It will be much healthier, and it's not going to spiral. You are in control of the situation. You are the one guiding the process. You're going to generate healing from that, and not just be spiraling. Okay, so yeah.
Why? Okay, if I'm a Talmud Chacham of the Tanya, right? And I read 1, 2, 3, and 3 is telling me about how I should deal with my guilt, etc. And then I get to the last paragraph and it says, hey, it's all okay. You're forgiven your sins. Don't worry about it. Why can't we go from A to C? Why do we have to go through B?
Excellent question. So let me just restate the question. Question is, if at the end of chapter 26, Yad Rebbe says that one ought to also have faith in God and believe that God will forgives. And therefore, that's the simcha, the joy that follows the contrition, the bitterness of heart, as it were. So why not just jump to that and say, oh, I did this thing wrong. All right, but God will forgive. We're good. So the answer is, I think, that that God certainly forgives, but we have to go through that process of acknowledging the thing that we did wrong, resolving not to do it again, and changing. So we can't shortcut that process of change. In other words, without change, there's no change. But the point is, if we've done that work, then we have nothing to worry about. That stuff is outstanding. Like, oh, I still feel guilty over what I did to, over the past, like almost skeletons that are haunting me. And he's trying to say, if you've done that work to fix it, then let go. Then let go. You got to forgive yourself. And the way to forgive yourself is knowing that God is forgiven. But it doesn't mean that's not a replacement of doing the work to make amends. You got to make the amends. He's not saying don't make amends. He's saying make amends, but make amends. Don't do it reactively, because that's just a strategy of the HR, the evil inclination. Do it proactively. Do it at the time and place of when you're ready to do it. But then when you've done it, also trust that God has taken care of it.
I think all that's brilliant. But since we're talking about guilt and shame,
Yes.
just a comment. I don't think the example of the football player missing the goal is guilt. I think that's pure shame, because he did his best. Guilt is you sort of know you're doing it and it's wrong. He did everything that he could, and now he feels
You might be
bad.
right.
It's shame.
You might be
I
right.
mean, that's just what
I was thinking the same thing. However,
I feel guilty
we
about using that
cannot
example.
relate to the professional ball player because that is his thing. And yes,
No,
he
that's what
would-
she's saying. Maybe that's why it's more shame. It's like,
no.
I am
no,
supposed
what
to
I'm
be
saying,
oh, sorry.
because he's professional,
Hmm.
he feels guilt. If he was just a guy on the schoolyard, he would feel shame in front of his friends. But me
Interesting.
being a $3 million a year athlete,
He still
I
feels
feel
shame.
guilty that I missed it.
Right.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah. Listen, it
They
could
didn't get their money's worth out of me.
So here's my caveat. Take all of my examples with lots of grains of salt, because it's just an example.
Okay.
So it may not be accurate. And that's why it's better sometimes when I don't give examples, although I think examples do help just to kind of frame things. Because I think in our own lives, we know what we feel guilty about. We know what we feel ashamed about. That's so however we feel guilt and shame, I think that would be the
Are you guilty or ashamed that you haven't worked one of your jokes in yet?
It's coming.
I didn't even think of it. Now I feel both. Oh, speaking of a joke, it's a good guilt joke. Oh, you know the joke about the dry cleaner? So, okay, fine. So this guy that owns a dry cleaning company business, so he's invited, but he's like he makes a lot of money in the dry cleaning business. He takes them to the cleaners. Anyway, no, so he's made a killing, and he's donated to the local university school, whatever it is. They bring him in for a business ethics talk. All right. So he says, I'm gonna give you an example of a business ethics question. Imagine somebody drops off the suit, and in the suit is 5 $100 bills, right in the jacket pocket. 5. Right? They didn't know, they forgot, they dropped it off, and you're going through before you're dry cleaning. You see there's $500 bills. This is where business ethics come in. What's the moral question? Do you tell your partner, or do you just pocket it off yourself? Speaking of guilt, kidding. I don't know. That's the one that's sort of.
They left it too.
Yeah, they meant it.
Don't ruin the suit.
Absolutely. That's the thing. Right. It was for me. All right. But here's the point. The point is that guilt is managed by dealing with it, but dealing with it at the right time, not in the middle of the day. That's the key idea. Let's talk about shame. Shame, I quoted here, I did partial 26, the entire chapter 27. And so because it's the entire chapter, some of it may be a little, maybe veering off a little bit. Not really, but a little bit. But I'm going to try to keep everything focused. So let's jump right back in. All right, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen again for our online crew. And we now switch to chapter 27 of time. If, however, you guys ready? Again, the objective here is that Alter Rebbe is trying to help us manage our negative emotions. What I'm referring to as a negative emotion is anything that makes us feel negative, sad, bad, guilty, ashamed, unworthy, undeserving, anything that's a bad feeling, right? He's trying to help us out of that. How modern is this way of thinking? It's unbelievable. I don't even think psychology has fully embraced this yet. Maybe positive psychology. The idea that to stew over the bad stuff, who does that help? You got to deal with it, sure, but to stew over it, who's that helping? Keeping yourself locked in a cycle of negative emotions? Who did that ever help? All right, here we go. Shame. If, however, his sadness does not stem from anxiety over sins that he has committed, but from the fact that sinful thoughts and desires enter his mind, let me explain. Again, he's talking about his framing, and Tanya is about us and God, but it could be expanded to us and us, interpersonal. Shame is different than guilt, as he just said. Guilt is about things that you've done in the past. I did something wrong. I feel bad about that. Shame is not about the past. It's about who I am. I'm the guy that has sinful thoughts. I'm the guy that has lustful.
Jimmy Carter.
I lost it.
You're too young. You're too young to know
I
the
know
reference.
Jimmy Carter. I know the name.
But you don't know the reference.
I don't know the reference. Tell me the reference.
He proclaimed that he lusted in his heart.
Okay.
Therefore, he sinned because he lusted. his
Oh,
heart.
interesting. So he brings that right here in the next.
I think was it a Playboy article or something?
Oh, he wrote that.
I don't know.
It's getting more interesting as the moment goes. Wow. All right. Huh?
That's why you.
I have no idea. But interesting because he brings the lustful thoughts.
Right.
You'll see it in, I can't even see where the,
So
Yeah.
maybe Jimmy.
it's in
Carter
the
was a
1, 2, 3,
Kabbalist.
it's in the
Maybe
fourth
Jimmy Carter-
paragraph.
Maybe he was a Kabbalist.
Clearly. But hold on 1 second. 1 second. Let's reset the room for a second. Let's make sure we all know what we've done. Wow.
What did he say?
No, she said it's in.
It is from Playboy in 1970.
Wow. Okay. All right. So let's just bring it back to here for a quick second. So what he's saying here is like this: guilt is feeling bad about something I've done or haven't done. Shame is feeling bad about who I am. I'm the guy who has these negative thoughts. I don't feel good about myself.
Self-identity.
Self-identity. So guilt is about kind of an external thing it's still me that's done that who has done it or not done it, who did it or didn't do it.
Mistake versus this is who I am.
Exactly. And it's also past versus present. That's another distinction which we didn't mention before. Guilt is about something I did or didn't do. In other words, past, even if it's a moment ago. But whereas shame is who I am. That's why shame, someone who's embarrassed, is ashamed, their face turns red. Right now, I'm not comfortable with who I am right now. It's not about something I did. It's not something external outside of myself. This is who I am. Okay, let's bring it in. Let's bring it back in. So, say it again. You're saying that's how deep it goes. Yeah. If, however, his sadness does not stem from, I'm just starting again just to get a running start. If, however, his sadness does not stem from anxiety over sins that he has committed, but from the fact that sinful thoughts and desires enter his mind in the present, then here we go. Here's the solution. If these thoughts occurred to him not during his service of God, but while he is occupied with his own affairs and with mundane matters and the like, in other words, in the middle of the day, have the negative thoughts, he should, on the contrary, look at this. This is unbelievable what he says. He should, on the contrary, be happy in his lot. Oh, you feel ashamed that you have these negative thoughts coming to you, that you're not the type of person that doesn't have negative thoughts? You feel ashamed about your moral character and your upstanding, who you are? Be happy. Be happy? Why am I being happy? What is it? What kind of plot twist is this? Look what he says. Be happy in his lot. I'm continuing inside that paragraph. For although these sinful thoughts enter his mind, he averts his attention from them. What is the happiness? I have, as I'll explain in a second, I have the opportunity to have a thought enter and then to push it away. And that is a big mitzvah, to push away a negative thought. If I never had a negative thought, I would never have the opportunity to push it away. And literally he says that right now. By averting, let's keep on going, because this is what he's saying. By averting his mind from sinful thoughts, he fulfills the injunction. In other words, he does the mitzvah of, quote, you shall not follow after your heart and after your eyes, by which you go astray. Literally in the Shema. This is in the Shema. We say, V'lo sasuru achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem asher atem zonim achareim. You should not follow after your heart and after your eyes, by which you go astray. The above, let's continue. The above verse surely does not speak of tzaddikim, referring to them, God forbid, as going astray. A tzaddik never has a sinful thought. So what kind of sinful thought is a tzaddik averting? Spoiler alert, doesn't have a sinful thought, right? But of Bainim, like himself. Bainim is the hero of Tanya. It's the person that has, inside is complicated, but we've talked about this before, but on the outside tries to keep everything in order, right? But Bainim, like himself, in whose mind there do enter, he says, erotic thoughts, whether of an innocent nature or otherwise. And when he averts his mind from them, he fulfills this injunction. Basically, again, there's words here, but let's just bring it back. The concept, he's basically saying as follows: the person who feels ashamed over who they are. I'm ashamed that I have, that I'm of this character, that I have these thoughts entering my mind. He says, shame? Be happy. Be happy. What? Why am I being happy? I'm ashamed of who I am. No. Be happy that you have the opportunity to jujitsu these thoughts. You have the opportunity to feel them come to you and then to be able to reject them. Obviously, this presupposes that the person does the work to reject them. He's not saying don't feel guilty about entertaining negative thoughts and going with it, but we're talking about not feeling the shame over not being of a quote unquote perfect character. It's the imperfection that allows the person to block the imperfection inside, to block that, and thereby fulfill the mitzvah of blocking the negative desire. If you never had a negative desire, then you would never have the opportunity to block the negative desire. Does that make sense?
Well, it's also about like a suit example. Like, don't be the guy who says that, oh, that's a $500 tip. Like completely thinking you're like perfect.
Right. Also, correct.
So his idea of shame is different than what I was saying before, and it fits in with yours definition of He had to have done something. This is just something he's thinking in his mind, mostly erotic stuff. So that's
Right.
a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know most. That's definitely the example that he uses because I think that aligns well with the verse from Numbers that he says,
Okay.
"Don't follow the thoughts of your mind."
Okay.
But I think in general, if a person feels that they are, again, if we define shame as the dissonance, as the gap between where you are internally and where you would like to be as a person, and then you tell yourself, well, okay, so my inner imperfection is not, okay, this is going to sound weird. My flaw is not a flaw, it's an opportunity. I think that's where the shift happens. It's like, do I feel bad about my internal flaws? Or do I say to myself, oh, my internal flaws have been gifted to me by Hashem, by God, in order for me to push against them and to achieve something greater than had I never been given this challenge to begin with. And that's the healthy approach, is to realize that the truth is he's going to explain this a little bit more as we continue. So let's continue inside. Our sages have said, so 1 second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth paragraph, our sages have said, when one passively refrains from sin, he is rewarded as though he has actively performed a mitzvah. You see that? Isn't that amazing? If you sit on your hands and do nothing, it's like you did a mitzvah. Right? Why? But that's only when maybe you wanted to do something. You had a passion to do something, but you didn't. Oh, you got a mitzvah. Consequently, he should rejoice in his compliance with the injunction, just as he does with performing an actual positive precept. In other words, if you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, do a mitzvah. Yeah, to help someone, whatever it is. That's a great opportunity. You have an opportunity now to do a mitzvah. Your mind is conjuring up all these negative thoughts. You don't act on them. Great. You celebrate the negative thought. You celebrate the fact that your imperfection, because that provides the opportunity to push back on it and to not act on it. On the contrary, let's continue. This paragraph, actually, this one is a bombshell. On the contrary, he says, such sadness is due to conceit. Shame, he says, is arrogance. I feel bad about who I am. Who do you think you should be? You feel bad about who you are. Who do you expect? You expect to be any better than that? Who told you you are? In other words, it's actually a mark of arrogance, as he'll explain. On the contrary, such sadness is due to conceit, for he does not know his place, and that's why he's distressed, because he has not attained the level of a tzaddik, to whom such foolish thoughts surely do not occur. The person feels bad that they're not a tzaddik. Who told you were a tzaddik? That was your first mistake. Who told you you're a tzaddik? Oh, you're not a tzaddik. Oh, I feel so bad I'm not a tzaddik. Let's continue. For if you were to recognize his station, that he's very far from the rank of a tzaddik, and if only he would be a Beinoni and not a Rasha for even a single moment throughout his life, then surely this is the due measure of the Beinonim and their task, to subdue the evil impulse and the thought that rises from the heart to the mind, and to completely avert his mind from it, repulsing it, as it were, with both hands, as explained above. In other words, the whole point of life of a Beinoni, a tzaddik, is someone who's perfect inside and out. A Beinoni is somebody who has negative thoughts and feelings and desires inside, but doesn't act on them. He says this person who has these negative thoughts and desires, this person now has the opportunity to be a Beinoni. So you think you should be a tzaddik? Who told you should be a tzaddik? Why do you have the illusions of such grandeur, spiritual grandeur? Why do you have the illusion that you should be perfect? Who told you you're perfect? You're imperfect. Not to embrace the imperfection, act on it. No, on the contrary, embrace the imperfection and don't act on it. There's recognize, this is who I am. I'm the type of person that has negative thoughts, like most people in the world, 99.9%, i.e. those who are not a tzaddik, a bona fide tzaddik. So I will have negative thoughts. Great. That's my opportunity. My opportunity is to feel it and to not act on it. Mazel tov. That's what makes me human. In other words, what he's really saying, if we were to use other language, if you have an animal soul inside of you, you feel bad about that? I have these desires that are unbecoming. Where are they coming from? Your animal soul. Great. Who gave that to you? God. So what are you feeling bad about? He's not saying act on it. He's That's not what he's saying. He's not saying, oh, embrace who you are and act on it. No. He's saying embrace who you are, that these are coming to you, and then embrace your mission of firewalling it, blocking it. That's your mission. But to wish that desire away, why? Then you don't have the opportunity to block it. I'm trying to think of a good example. A sports example. Your defense. Your job is to play defense. If there was
no game without it.
And if there's no offense that you're trying to, it's a good example. You're the goalie, better. You're the goalie. If there's no other team, then you don't have a job. If there's no one kicking the ball at your net, then what's your what's your role? You're just standing there. So I feel bad. I imagine the goalie. I feel ashamed that people are trying to score a goal. I feel ashamed. That's the way the system works. Your job is to block it. I feel so ashamed that I have all these thoughts and desires inside. Shame? After said, Mazel Tov, congratulations, you're human. Mazel Tov, here's a certificate of humanity. Great, you're normal. We've diagnosed you, we put you under the microscope, brought you into the lab, and we've diagnosed, after much thought, Mazel Tov, you're a human being. You're not perfect. Great.
Again, why go through B and not just skip to C? I've studied this book. I know the outcome.
He is going to see. He's saying that the point of life is, for most people, the point of life is to feel the desire inside and then to tell yourself, but I'm not going to act on it. And that's what makes the Beinoni strong, is feeling it, but not acting on it. But to feel bad about feeling it, it's just a waste of time and energy. I feel bad about feeling it. Feel bad. I have the opportunity to hold back.
But it's also you feel bad upon acting upon it. But again, we could skip over to C and not feel bad.
For the guilt. Great. That was the previous chapter, which we thought, okay, I hear you. Let's continue.
What's that?
We have the capacity to not skip over to C. We get to run that through our computer, so to speak.
Oh, I like to skip right to C.
He likes to skip to the end of the whodunit.
Right.
It was the butler with the.
I read the last chapter.
There you go. All right. Let's continue. This is the last paragraph of that page. With every repulsion of this thought, when you hold back, right, from his mind, the sitra achra. Oh, sitra achra is a great term. Sitra achra means the other side. It's an Aramaic term. Brought in Kabbalah, sitra achra means the other side, but it's like the ominous other side, like bum, 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 right? The negative. The sitra achra is suppressed here below, and since the awakening from below produces a corresponding awakening above, the sitra achra above, which soars like an eagle, is also suppressed. Thus, realizing the verse, though you soar aloft like the eagle, I will yet bring you down from there, says God. In other words, that every time we hold ourselves back from a negative desire, not only are we practicing self-control and are we expressing an act of tremendous righteousness of a human being being able to suppress a very powerful internal desire. Not only that, but on a cosmic level, the entire scheme or the entire plane of negativity is subdued and is brought down. It's almost like, when the sea split, all the waters in the world split. When the Red Sea split, all the waters in the world split. So it's like when we suppress our negative desires, it's almost like negativity everywhere drops down a little bit. It's subdued. Let's see if we can make a beeline to the end over here. Indeed, the Zohar in Parashat Truma, this is the next page, third page, extols the divine satisfaction that occurs when the sitra achra, the other side, is subdued here below. For thereby God's glory rises above all, more than by any other praise, and this ascent is greater than all else, etc. Let's continue. Therefore, here's the bottom line. One should not feel depressed or very troubled at heart, even if he be engaged all his days in this conflict. For perhaps this is what he was created for, and this is the service demanded of him to subdue the sitra achra constantly. Concerning this, Job said to God, remember Job, the famous sufferer, said to God, you have created wicked men, not that they were created to actually be wicked, God forbid, but that there should occur to them in their thoughts and musings alone that which occurs to the wicked, that they should externally wage war to avert their minds from them in order to subjugate the sitra achra. Yet they will never be able to annihilate the sitra achra in their souls completely, for this is accomplished by tzaddikim. In other words, what he's saying is he's just repeating what he said before. A tzaddik is someone who never has a negative thought or negative desire. That is a tzaddik. However, most of us are not tzaddikim. Most of us are aspiring beinunim. And as a beinoni, that means you will have these negative thoughts and negative desires. And the job is the firewall to hold them back. And we must continue what he says. It's so beautiful. There are two kinds of divine pleasure. Now, God enjoys two things from human beings. The first, from the complete annihilation of the Sitra Achra and the conversion of bitter to sweet and of darkness to light, which is accomplished by tzaddikim. In other words, God enjoys tzaddikim who are perfect. And the second is when the Sitra Achra is subdued while it is still at its strongest and most powerful, soaring like an eagle. And from its height, God topples it in response to human initiative. This is accomplished by beinoni. God enjoys two things, perfection and imperfection, but nonetheless swatting down the desire inside. In other words, dealing with the height of temptation and still saying no at the end, God enjoys that as well. This is alluded to in the verse, and make me delicacies such as I love. This is, remember, this was Isaac, our patriarch Isaac, who at that point could not see, who tells his son Esau, make me delicacies, plural, that I love. What are two delicacies? Not delicacy. Make my favorite dish. Make the dishes that I love. What does that mean? Where the word matamim, delicacies, is written in the plural, indicating, he says, two kinds of pleasure. These words are not just Isaac telling Esau, but these are the words of the charge of the Shekhinah, God's divine presence, to his children. The community of Israel is explained to Kunei Zohar. This is God telling us, make me delicacies. What are the two delicacies? We continue. Just as with material food, in other words, food, there are two kinds of delicacies. One of sweet and luscious foods, and the other of sharp or sour articles, but have been well spiced and prepared so that they become delicacies which revive the soul. So too are there two kinds of spiritual delicacies. There's pleasure in sweet food, and there's pleasure in spicy food, right? If we took a poll, do you like sweet food or spicy food? You know, maybe some prefer sweet, some prefer spicy. Maybe some like both. You know what God likes? Both. Sweet is a tzaddik. There's no friction. There's no conflict. It's perfect. It's sweet. Perfection. But you know what everyone else is like? It's complicated. It's a little bit spicy. It's a little bit spicy. You wanted to, but at the last second you did it. God loves that also. It's not perfect. I don't know. I don't only like sweet food. I like food that's a little bit challenging also. That when I eat it, my palate zings a little bit. I like that also. I like to be challenged. In my context, I like drinking seltzer. When you drink the bubbles, it's like, who drank who just now? Like, who really drank who? I'm feeling the pain of those bubbles. Like, that's it. All joking aside, he says two types of delicacies. This is indicated in the verse from Proverbs, the Lord has made everything for his sake, even the wicked for the day of evil. This means that he should repent of his evil and turn his evil into day and light above when the Sitra Achra is subdued and the glory of God is uplifted on high. God made the evil also for a purpose, which is to be subdued. If a person wishes, I don't want to have negative thoughts. Ooh, but what about God's desire that you should feel that and suppress it? How are you going to suppress it if you never felt it? Final, and around the turn they come. What is that in the Kentucky Derby? And around the bend, the turn. What is it? Yeah, the last, right. Around the stretch or down the stretch they come. Here we go. Furthermore, even in matters that are fully permissible, every act of sacrificing one's impulse, even if only for a short while, with the intention of subduing the Sitra Achra in the left part of his heart, achieves this end. For example, and this is an example that I've given many times in this class, when he wants to eat. This is not about suppressing negativity, even neutral, but just the animal part of self. When he wants to eat, but delays his meal for an hour or less, and during that time he studies Torah. As the Gemara states, the 4th hour of the day is when all men eat, but the 6th hour is the mealtime for scholars, because they would go hungry for 2 hours with this intention, although even after the meal they would study all day. In other words, they could have eaten also. Imagine 12, 4 hours, 6 hours. Imagine noon, right? Noon time, everyone eats at lunch at noon, you clock at lunch. Great. So the scholar would say, I'm not going to eat at noon. Why? To be different. To tell my body, you're not in charge, I'm in charge. Similarly, if one restrains his mouth from saying things which he greatly desires to say concerning mundane matters, even if it's not, forbidden things, even if it's not. And likewise, regarding the thoughts of his mind, even by the slightest subjugation of the Sitra Achra here below, the glory of God and his holiness is greatly elevated on high. From this holiness, the sublime holiness issues forth upon man below to assist him with a great and powerful aid in the service of God. This is what our sages meant when they said, if a man consecrates himself in a small measure here below, he is sanctified greatly from above. So we do a little bit of sacrifice below, and that creates a lot of light above. This is apart from the fact that when one sanctifies himself in permissible matters, he thereby fulfills the positive command of the Torah, sanctify yourselves and be holy. Leviticus says to be kadosh, to be holy, and that means to restrain yourself a little bit. The meaning of, as he says right here, the meaning of sanctify yourself is you shall make yourself holy. In other words, you're not perfectly holy. You're not a tzaddik, but make yourself as if you are. That is to say, although in truth one is not holy and separated from the Sitra Achra, for the Sitra Achra of his animal soul is still as at birth, at its full strength and might in the left part of his heart, yet he subdues and masters his evil impulse and makes himself holy, separate from the Sitra Achra, and then you will be holy. So if you fake it till you make it. You fake it, and then eventually you'll get holy and holy. That is, that ultimately he will be truly holy and removed from the Sitra Achra through his being greatly sanctified from above, and through his being aided from above to expel the Sitra Achra from his heart, little by little. Okay, there's a lot to unpack. I said before that we're going to read the whole chapter 27, which is quite long, and it talks about things that spins off into a few directions that we could elaborate on for more and more classes. But I really did want to limit it to this conversation today and bring out 2 points. Again, just to recap today about guilt and shame. The difference is guilt is about something I've done. Shame is about who I am. So how to address both? Both are not positive. In other words, both are negative emotions that suck us into negative spaces. Therefore, we want to avoid them. So how do we avoid guilt? Guilt is, oh, I feel bad I did something wrong. Sure, valid. Find the time, make an appointment with yourself in the evening, on the weekend, in the morning, maybe, whatever it is. Your mind is fresh. You're ready to go. Deal with it at the time that is of your choosing, not in a reactive way, but in a proactive way. Deal with the guilt and resolve it. That is a way to get it done. That's guilt. Shame. I feel bad about who I am. And who are you? I'm not perfect. I have all these negative things going on inside. I have all these character flaws. Okay? That's exactly where you're supposed to be. You are exactly the way, not in behavior, but inside. You are exactly the way you were meant to be. You're designed, all those internal flaws. No, but I'm a guy who gets angry, I'm a guy who gets jealous. Great. Perfect. That's exactly what God wanted. God put inside of you all of those vices. Oh, great. So I get to act on it? No, I didn't say that. God put those vices inside of you for one purpose, and that is to feel that desire, right? Let's say I get angry. Feel the anger, jealous. I feel the jealousy, then push it down. Push it down. Let it go. Not let it go. Push it, subdue it. That's why you have it. So what, you don't want it? First of all, you're saying God got it wrong. That's the first statement. You're saying God got it wrong. God made me and he made me wrong. Who are you to tell God what to do? I'm pretty sure if God made you like that, that's exactly the way he made you. And it was intentional. Number one. Number two, you're saying that you would have liked to be a tzaddik. You would like to be the person that never gets angry. Okay, so you want to be a tzaddik. Well, guess what? You're not that rare breed. Yeah, but I really want to be a tzaddik. Who are you to think you should be a tzaddik? Why? What? Why are you so privileged to think you should be a tzaddik? You're flawed like the rest of us, right? So that's the second point. So God didn't get it wrong. You don't deserve to be a tzaddik, right? So this is where you are, right? You have the negative character traits, negative thoughts or feelings that come to mind. Great. Now you have the opportunity, point 3, to do a mitzvah. V'lo sasuru. You have the opportunity now to not follow the dictates, the whims of these negative character traits inside. You have the opportunity to, on the contrary, subdue them. So you feel angry, so you don't say anything. You don't act on it. You feel jealous, let it go. You have now the opportunity to push back against those very strong feelings inside. Very strong feelings. Now you can push back against that. And that's the purpose of life. Because God loves that. God loves that. God didn't create us to be perfect. God created angels and a few tzaddikim on earth. Maybe what's their role? Why would there be even any tzaddik? Could be
37 of them.
36. Could be
36.
to show a human model of what it could look like. Could also be that those people are empowered to help others along their journey. Could be, but not that we have the illusions of being a tzaddik. We are he's basically, this chapter 27, he says, Embrace who you are. Embrace the Beinoni life, hashtag Beinoni life, right? Embrace it. Embrace it. This is who you are. You got imperfections. Great. It's exactly the way you're supposed to be. And now suppress them. Don't act on them, right? So yeah, but this is a big, I really lust after X, Y, and Z. I really lust after money. And I'm so tempted to lie, cheat, and steal. Great. Perfect. It's exactly the way God made you. And now don't do that. And that's your whole purpose of life, is to feel that, to feel it explode, and then say, not today. And that's it. You want to articulate the purpose of life in one line? That's it. To feel it and not act on it. That's it. But why would God want that? First of all, who are we to tell God what he wants? Second of all, because he likes spicy food. He likes spicy food. Doesn't like sweet food. Sweet food is from the angels and tzaddikim. Oh, perfection. Perfection is boring. You want to see a little action. In other places in Chassidus, that use the example of a talking bird. A talking bird. At Sipur HaMedaberet, talking bird. You have a parrot, right? Not a parent, something else. A parrot. Or what's the other name of the bird that talks?
Macaw.
A caw. Macaw, right? Right. A parrot. There you go. So a parrot. A parrot is talking. So it says in Chassidus that a person has such delight when you hear a parrot talk. Oh my God, the parrot talk! Oh my, the smile is, you get so much joy. And then you ask your, and then you wonder, why am I so excited about? Like, I hear people talking all the time. I don't get so excited. Right? People are talking the whole day, blah blah blah. I'm not so excited. The parrot says two words that are almost right, and you get so excited. What's the answer? Why do you get so excited? The answer is because parrots shouldn't talk. When you have a bird that talks, that's the joy is born of the impossibility, the contrast. That's what God. We are. Well, it's going to sound wrong, but we are God's talking parrots. God's like, if you can pull off some sort of spiritual propriety, despite what I put inside you, if you can still eke out a decent day, wow, that's exciting. The fact that a tzaddik has a good day, yeah, obviously. Like, there's no plot suspense over there. The fact that an angel has a good day, obviously. What was the alternative? The fact that you and I have a good day, it's impressive. God says, I like that. That's exciting. That makes me smile. And God's like, oh, you think you know your flaws? I know your flaws. I put them inside of you. God's like, oh, you stand before God. I'm so sorry that I had these thoughts. God's like, hello. Yalla. Like, I literally programmed you like that. You don't have to be upset or sad or despondent or ashamed about who you are inside. I did that to you. Your job is to allow the good stuff to come out and to hold back the negative stuff. That's it. That I'm not trying to minimize it, but that's the entire job. To reprogram inside, I don't know about that. That might be a higher level deep dive that you and I likely can't pull off. But living a decent life, despite being a mensch, being a good person, despite all the stuff inside, yeah, that's challenging, and that's the purpose of life. So to be ashamed about that, be ashamed, like I'm not a good person. I'm not. Oh, one second. It's about something you did. No, it's about who I am, who you are. You're exactly who you were meant to be. But now live a good life. Make sense? Chapter 27 of Tanya. Very powerful stuff. Maybe psychology will catch on one day to these ideas. I'm sure they've been co-opted, and I'm sure it appears as well. All right. Thank you all for joining me this morning for Kabbalah Cafe. Okay. So homework for this week. Set the intention this week. This week. Here would be my suggestion practically. This week. Oh, Caroline writes, it sounds like you're using Sitra Achra interchangeably with Yetzer Hara. The answer is yes. Sitra Achra, Yetzer Hara, Nefesh Bahamis, Klipa,
All the bad guys.
all in the same team. I mean, do they maybe have different positions on the team? One is a linebacker, one of that. Could be, right? But by and large, that's it. Frank, I need to do more hockey references, especially number one, it's what I love. Number two, it's what you love. And I went with soccer with the goalie. Could have used a hockey goalie, right? If no one's taking shots and I get a shutout, it's not that impressive, right? If the other team didn't show up and I got a shutout, great, right? But if I get fired, if I had 60 shots, right? Back in the day, Patrick, he was on Montreal. Who's on Philly? Hextall, Ronnie Hextall. Your boy Ronnie Hextall. There you go. I think Ron Hextall, right? He was the goalie. Yeah, he was. Okay, got it. Yeah. My youth coming back. Anyway, right? You're facing shots. You block them. Oh, now that's the guy that we want. You never got a shot. Then what are you doing? You got a shot and you blocked it. Great. Okay, so this week, here's the intention and here's the work for this week. Speaking to myself, is guilt and shame. Number one, guilt is when a guilty thought. That sounds wrong. Guilty thought. When thoughts, when you feel bad about something you did, when that comes to you, make an appointment this week. Make an appointment and see how that goes. See how that goes. Very productive appointment, not to wallow in guilt. A productive appointment. This is what I did or didn't do. How can I fix it? Great. Make it productive. Number one. Number two, when you feel shame this week, embrace the fact that inside you are exactly the way God designed you and put you on this earth with one purpose, that when you feel those negative urges, when you feel those negative desires, you now have the opportunity to block, opportunity to stop. And by doing so, you not only fulfill your purpose, but the entire purpose of creation. It gives God a lot of nachas. The bird is talking. The bird should not talk. Human beings that are flawed should act flawed. He or she didn't. Oh my gosh. God says to the angels, you got to check this out. You guys are perfection. Look at this guy. Look at this person. And look what they're doing with what I gave them. Unbelievable. That's the goal in life. All right. And that's the homework for this week. Okay, just a quick scheduling announcement. Next week we're on. What's next week? The 14th. We are on, please God, for Kabbalah Cafe. The following few weeks we are not on because it's Passover coming up. So next week will be our last session before Passover. So join us.
21st.
Ari,
Yes,
Okay.
Caroline has a question.
Caroline, jump in.
That guy's trying to get in. and
Oh.
not doing it. Okay.
Nice. Cool.
Charge him.
And he's the security guy.
Say it again.
He's the security guy
Oh, is he?
at the
No,
gate.
he's not.
The one at the gate. The front gate.
Oh, is he at the front? That's funny. Interesting. See that? We have such good security that even the security can't get in. That's how good the security is. Even the security. See how that? Shavua tov. All right. That's it. All right. Maybe Caroline just wanted, maybe it's what she she wrote before. Sitrach and Yitzhara. Okay. All right. Reach out. A few scheduling announcements. What do we have upcoming? We have a Pesach boot camp coming up next week, the 17th. Other exciting stuff that we're working on. A lot of very exciting stuff. Stay tuned. We got some big events coming up in classes. All right. Good to see you all. Shavua tov.
Shavua
And-
Tov.
See you next week. Bye, guys.